Here is the all-time wins list. You got it ready, Garrett? Thank you for doing that. Here is the all-time wins list in college football. This is updated through the games that have been played as of now, as of today. Craig?
Yes, and so I just thought this was interesting. I was looking at the other day. Actually, I was looking at this early on in the season, and I noticed there was some 2 through 5 that was very close, or in some cases all the way until last week, Notre Dame and Texas were tied all time. But I was very curious with the playoff playing out the way with these extra games of how that would look. So we have had a bit of a shuffle. Alabama and Ohio State about a month ago were tied in all-time wins. Alabama lost their bowl game. Ohio State's gone and won 3 playoff games, and they had the opportunity to win a 4th playoff game. And so in this last month of the playoff, with Bama's 9 wins on the year and Ohio State closing in on big-time double digits, they not only passed Alabama, they're rolling past Alabama now at this point. Now, Michigan is obviously up there at the top by their lonesome, and it's going to take a lot for anybody to catch them. They have a bit of a head start on a lot of teams. They played as many games as anybody. They've been around as long as anybody, so it's going to be hard to knock them off that perch. But it's not like, well, I mean, you go 7-6 a couple years, and the other team's going 14 and whatever. You can close that gap pretty quickly.
Yeah, you've had teams that were up there that are now down to maybe where Oklahoma is. Now, they've been pretty consistent. Penn State, Nebraska's dropped a little bit over the years. You go into an 8 to 10 year funk, and you might have somebody catch you.
Well, just this year alone, Ohio State's gained 5 games on Michigan, and they could gain 6 based on the way the two teams finished. So the thing that just stuck out to me was, yes, Michigan's out there in front, and they are the all-time winningest program. Now, I know there is, let's be very clear here, this is Division I. This is not like Penn and Yale and, including Mary Hardin Baylor as far as the most wins in the decade and things like that. This is just your regular D1 college football, most wins of all time. So, yes, Michigan remains and will remain for the foreseeable future the winningest program by that category of all time. But Ohio State has made a move now to claim second place and even built a little bit of a lead here over Alabama. And then you also had the separation between Notre Dame and Texas. Like I said, up until last week, they were deadlocked at 961. And so with Texas's loss and Notre Dame's win, they now jump a game above the Longhorns into sole possession of 4th place. Penn State obviously gained a little bit of ground on Oklahoma with their performance this year. You got Nebraska, who, I hate to say this, but I don't know where they were year 2000-wise. All-time wins.
They're at the same spot.
They might be in the same spot. I don't know, but
No. There, I could see where Penn State gained 19 games in the last 25 years. I could see that Oklahoma obviously did.
Oklahoma's obviously passed them. Penn State's obviously passed them. I don't know to what extent
they were
some of the
always
others
right next
did.
to Texas, and they've separated obviously over the last 10 or 15 years too.
So Nebraska.
That's far.
So much forgiveness. Wait, did you say forgiveness like far, or forgiveness like forgiveness? Forgiveness. Forgiveness. Forgiveness.
I'm hearing far.
Forgiveness. Like forgiveness. Forgiveness? Forgiveness.
I'm still hearing far, but whatever.
Introducing Stealth 2 with more carbon for more forgiveness.
Forgiveness. Just hit it.
At least has a little bit of a lead on Georgia, but Georgia's climbed up these rankings the last few years, as you might imagine, to where now they're squarely in that top 10 with the 892. They've passed up Tennessee. So I don't know. I just find it interesting to look at and see the all-time wins, because this was a year where they have rearranged with Ohio State now at 2, Notre Dame now at 4, and even some of the Penn State moves there as well over the past few years as Nebraska continues to slide. So any surprises there or anything that stands out to you?
One of the things that stands out to me is over the last 20 years, Ohio State, outside of the Harbaugh era, since they flipped from other John Cooper, not the John Cooper we just had,
right,
but other John Cooper to the Tressel Urban Meyer era, through just the last couple years in the Harbaugh Sharon Moore era for Michigan, Ohio State dominated that series, and not only dominated that series, but in all but maybe 2 of those 20 years or 3 of those 20 years were way better, like 2 to 3 games better than Michigan in a lot of those seasons. And Michigan is still, 25 wins up on them. That would really chap my ass if I was an Ohio State fan, because you're like, man, for 20 years, they have really not only just dominated the series between the two teams, but they've been the better team by a long shot.
Well,
by a long shot
they were
every
competing
year.
for championships. Michigan was, they did.
Michigan was
Of
also
those
ran
10 teams,
from Carr to Harbaugh, like
of
between
those
them.
10 teams, which one has not suffered any kind of lengthy drought?
Ohio State has not. And
I mean, even Alabama's was.
Yep.
I mean, it's like
Yeah.
a decade.
Yeah,
I
they
mean,
had they had some hit and miss.
But they
between-
won a national title in the early part of the decade
But
in what,
between-
92?
yeah, between
with George Teague's team. Yeah,
between Stallings and Saban, though, was a lot of mediocre for Alabama. You know, Ohio State is the most consistent football team.
For sure. Of the last like 30 years.
Maybe
for sure.
40.
and yet
Yeah,
Michigan
maybe
has
40.
35 more wins.
Yeah, that's still, yeah. They
Well,
still,
let's be fair. There's
Yeah.
a difference in games played. So
Yeah.
Michigan has played 1,406 games, which is not the most, but it is the 4th most. Penn has played the most games. I didn't include, like I said, though, FCS. I just went straight Division I. But the most games played in like regular Division I outside of Michigan is Rutgers and Navy, and that's it. Michigan's played the 4th most overall all time and the 3rd most all time in Division I football. So they do have 60 or so games more that they've played. So that factors in a little bit. But yeah, they're the only program clearly above the 1,000 win mark, which is a cool little club to be in. And Ohio State could get there in like
2 years.
2 years. Yeah, like 2 years they could get there if they had a run like they're having this
Well,
type of
yeah,
year.
because you have to win. You have to play 16 games,
if-
or 15 or 16
Look,
games. Yeah.
they're 23 wins off, and
That's
if
2
they win,
seasons.
and so if they win, they're 22. That's 11-2 with a
That's what you would expect.
That's
from
what
them.
you
Yeah.
expect. That's what Ryan Day's been doing. That's what he's been doing. He's 69-10.
Yeah.
69-10.
Yep.
And doesn't get. I mean, he hasn't earned the credit yet. But anybody else with that record, people would be terrified of him.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
That's a cool. I love graphics. First of all, I love all-time stuff. It's different now with stats because so many more games are played. Like even what Genty was doing.
single season.
Yeah.
But yeah, the all-time is cool, and yeah, you do have a disparity of like some teams like Michigan's played 60 more games, give or take. But it's still cool to see it, and it's cool that like now we've obviously Michigan did this last year, but they crossed that 1,000 win mark, and Ohio State will probably do that in a couple years. Alabama will probably do that in the next couple years, and then Notre Dame the next 3-4 years. So we're going to see more teams joining that, not next season, but after that. And I just thought that was kind of a cool mark as well. And then you sort of see where, Oklahoma's hit 950 this year, even though it wasn't a great season by any means. But getting that 6th win did get them their 950th. So that's a very select club to be involved in. And we talk about Penn State, and you can have the argument over blue blood, but one of the marks, and there are many that favor them in that conversation. I think the only one that really doesn't is just the national championships. That's the one that kind of brings them down in comparison to the others in that conversation. But yeah, 7th all-time in wins. And Nebraska got Georgia nipping at their heels if they're not careful here. It'll take a little while longer, but in the next 3 years or so, they could close
Matt
the gap even
Rule
more.
is about to dominate college football.
Yeah, now it'll take longer than 3 years because they're not going to go like 0-14. And,
Well, no, I mean, but you think about where the amount of
0-12,
tread
sorry.
they lost from 16 to 23 when they did not go to a bowl game, or 17, whatever, with Mike Riley, I think one year he did, and then the Frost era, then the first year with Rule. No, they slipped, man. They slipped, and you don't see, and no one would have thought that they would see them. They thought they would slip because of the moving into the Big 12 and some of the recruiting rules and all that. But they slipped. I mean, they were on an icy trail the last 15 years.
And just one more note, and then we'll look at the other one real quick, just to expand it a little bit. But just 11 games all time separating OU and Texas right there in back-to-back spots. And so obviously that waives one game or the other every year with them playing each other. But Oklahoma did have their stretch in the 2000s that even though Texas was very, very good, they were always just a game or two better, helped close the gap, I think, over the ensuing years a little bit there, but obviously lost, 5 games or whatever it is this year alone to Texas in the all-time standings. But that's Bluey right there What do you got? Big Ten, SEC, Indy, SEC, Big Ten, SEC. So, yeah, that's not surprising, I don't think, just in terms of the land grabs and how these conferences have formed, that you got all of the – we already knew that, all the big blue bloods. But let's take a look real quick just to expand it. We won't go nearly as in depth. But if you're looking at who else is close, well, right there outside the top 10, there's USC, just 4 games back of Tennessee. LSU, right there. I mean, there's a gap certainly between 11 and 12 of 30 games, but there's LSU at 12. Clemson has crossed the 800 win mark, so that's pretty cool.
ACC!
Yeah, there you go. Finally. There's Auburn. They crossed the 800 win mark. And top of the Big 12, in case you didn't know, West Virginia, the winningest all-time team. I think a lot of people know that, but did you know they're one of the winningest all-time, period all-time? They're top 15, which I think is very cool. 789, and hopefully Rich Rod, and expected that Rich Rod in the next year would be great, but in 2 years they're going to cross over that 800 win mark as a program all-time as well. So that's pretty exclusive company. A&M closing in on that 800, and then, yeah, Washington, Vatech, Florida, Pittsburgh. So Pittsburgh, a team that doesn't get a lot of love down here because we don't embrace them the same. You know, it's a different part of the country, and we kind of hear like all-time great program. You kind of roll your eyes maybe a little bit, but I mean, the numbers are there, and I know the success isn't the same as it was back in the day, but Pittsburgh is one of those most winning all-time programs.
Yeah, post Johnny Majors has been a bit of a different thing for them, but they were, when Johnny Majors, they were one of the powers in the. I mean, like Marino and Tony Dorsett both went there. You know, like they have like
Larry Fitzgerald,
Hugh Green,
Hugh. Oh yeah, you know, like they had a ton
Mark
of guys.
May,
They used to be one of those premier programs. But hey, ACC, way to get in there with one, two, three, four of the top 20, and no one in the top 10.
Do y'all have any idea of who the second highest winningest Big 12 team would be by any chance? Besides second highest, so not West Virginia, obviously.
Oh gosh,
Oklahoma State.
No, it is Colorado.
Okay, yeah.
Well, you know, they were really, really good.
Yeah, we were talking about Bill McCartney earlier this week.
In the Big 8, they were really good. And then early on in the Big 12, before they moved to the Pac-12, they were always pretty good.
Yeah, they are 31st overall all time. They have 732 wins, so they are top 30-ish.
The Big 12 is saddled with a problem right now when it comes to all-time wins, is that 3 of their teams that have been some of their more consistent teams over the last 15 years, Baylor, Iowa State, and Kansas State, were all just terrible.
Yeah, so I actually will take a segment and maybe do just the Big 12 one day to carve out a segment and just look at it that way. But there you go. There's the all-time wins and the update at the top there with Notre Dame, Ohio State, obviously making some moves, Texas as well, and just something different and cool to look at. So there you go. There's the all-time wins, and obviously Ohio State or Notre Dame will add one more as well.